Unsung Murder Ballads discusses topics of a disturbing nature.
And we're not going to hold back on the graphic details and disturbing content.
So we do not recommend our podcast for children under the age of 13.
And while we respect the victims and their families involved in these tragic cases,
we're also going to be critical of mistakes that are made during the investigations.
And we're going to use dark humor to express ourselves now and then.
So with that said, this podcast may not be for everyone.
And that's okay. We're glad you're here checking us out.
And if you've made it this far, welcome to the Unsung Murder Ballads family. And follow us on Instagram at Unsung Murder Ballads if you want to talk to us.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Unsung Murder Ballads. This is episode 80. I am Janus Dead.
I'm Jameson Dead.
And I'm Joyous Dead.
Welcome back to part 2 of our Jeffrey Dahmer coverage for Joyous's information.
So, Joyous,
so
what do you think so far?
I mean, so far, the way these cases always go, right, is they escalate and they escalate and they escalate until they get caught doing something. Here I am thinking, where is he escalating from here? And what is going to come next? And I might remember from watching the show how he ends up getting caught, but I think it's pretty obvious that he's going to, at some point, unsuccessfully try to drug someone, and then he's going to get reported.
Okay, that's a good guess. You're half right.
Right, and then I feel like, I don't know, like, where is he going to escalate from here? I feel like he's just going to start keeping more, he started keeping more and more body parts, and he's also started to consider eating them. So...
Right. I am going to spoil something for you, because of all the things Dahmer's famous for, being a cannibal was the biggest part of it.
Okay, interesting.
That's the thing that usually when people, like we joked in the first part about doing a Dahmer and that was being a stupid kid. No, this doing a Dahmer, if I said that to someone today, they would assume I was talking about cannibalism.
Cannibalism. Okay, interesting. So the weird thing he's doing with his victims that I predicted is that he's eating them.
Well, he hasn't started that yet. So far.
Right.
Like episode 1.
So far, the only weird thing he's doing is
the weird trophies.
With the bones.
Yeah, the trophies.
Yeah, with a weird trophy shit.
Yes. So that's...
And he's got 2 skulls in his collection. So far.
Yeah, so far. So we basically summed up part 1 for everybody. So we're just going to dive right back in where we left off last week. So 3 weeks after the murder of Ernest Miller, on September 24th, Dahmer encountered a 22-year-old father of 2 named David Thomas at the Grand Avenue Mall. He persuaded him to return to his apartment for a few drinks, with additional money on offer if he would pose for photographs. So it's funny how he has 2 methods. One, he's going to pay you for sex. Others, he's going to pay you for photos.
Right.
Which is weird. But you know what? I guess they don't always use the same MO.
Right, and you can catch different people with those 2 different things.
Very true. So in his statement to police after his arrest, Dahmer said that after giving David a drink laden with sedatives, he did not feel attracted to him, but was afraid to allow him to awaken, fearing that he would be angry over having been drugged. So just imagine that. You've just drugged your next victim that you planned on sexually assaulting, and then you were like, I don't want to sexually assault this person anymore. So instead of maybe just removing him from your apartment, you feel the need to kill him.
Yeah, it's just one of those sad killings that's a killing or hiding your tracks killing.
Yeah, that's stupid. Like if you dragged him down the street, he probably wouldn't remember where you lived.
True.
But he's already seen you at that point. So you kind of, obviously he'd be pissed once he woke up if he lived.
Yeah, but it's not like he's going to wake up and think, oh man, I just survived an encounter with a serial killer.
Right.
So yeah, you run the risk of getting your ass kicked if you bumped into him later, but maybe not. And especially if this guy comes up to you and you're like, hey man, I don't know, you fucking fell asleep. I just got you out of my house. I thought you were dead.
Yeah, you didn't even get him out of your house. You could have just been like, hey, he wakes up and you're like, hey, dude, are you okay? You totally passed out. Are you all right?
Yeah, anything, but instead the only avenue Dahmer felt he had was killing him. It's fucked up.
Which makes sense because he's in that pattern. That's what he does.
So as a result, Dahmer does what he does. He strangled him and dismembered the body, intentionally retaining no body parts whatsoever.
Right, because he doesn't want a trophy.
He photographed the dismemberment process and retained the photographs, which later aided in Thomas's identification.
Oh, wow.
Following the murder of David Thomas, Dahmer did not kill anyone for almost 5 months,
Wow, because he got the ick.
although on a minimum of 5 occasions between October and February of 91, he unsuccessfully attempted to lure other men to his apartment. So so you said he got the ick, but it may just be that he was so rattled that he's now giving off red flags to other potential victims.
That could be.
Dahmer regularly complained about feelings of both anxiety and depression to his probation officer throughout 1990, with frequent references to his sexuality, his solitary lifestyle, financial difficulties, and shortly before Thanksgiving, his apprehension regarding meeting and facing his father and younger brother. So his father clearly plays an interesting role in his life.
Yeah.
On several occasions, Dahmer also referred to harboring suicidal thoughts. In February of 1991, Dahmer observed a 17-year-old named Curtis Strotter standing at a bus stop near the Marquis University. According to Dahmer, he lured Strotter to his apartment with an offer of money for posing for nude photos, with the added incentive of sexual intercourse. Which, again, this goes back to the difference between men and women in these situations.
Right, like, oh, yeah, like, as a bonus, I'll give you a little fuck.
Yeah, like a woman would be like, no thanks.
Okay. I was like, oh, you know what? I was thinking, like, you know what? Maybe I would take some money to pose for nude photos. But then if you're like, hey, yeah, fuck you after if you want, then no, get out of here.
Right, and this is slightly off topic, but there was a famous photographer from the 90s who would purposely strip down naked when he took photos of his models. But apparently he was so good, like his photos were so amazing, that people continued to hire him and certain women loved working with him. But over time, and obviously today it wouldn't work, but women were just like, I refuse to work with this guy. Which makes sense. But apparently that was his big thing. Which is just fucking
weird.
Yeah, fucking
Well, I can
weird.
see an aspect of it being like, well, if I have to be here naked.
I'm sure he was using that as an excuse for that very thing, saying the women would have to continue to undress. But most of the women weren't nude models.
Oh, they weren't nude models. He was nude. They were not.
Correct. He was nude. He was a nude photographer taking photos of models.
Well, that's weirder.
Yeah, it's bizarre. Yeah, it's bizarre. So anyway, Dahmer drugged Curtis, handcuffed his hands behind his back, and then strangled him to death with a leather strap. He then dismembered him, kept his skull, his hands, and his genitals, and
hands. That one's new.
Yeah, and photographed each stage of the dismemberment process. Less than 2 months later, on April 7th, Dahmer encountered a 19-year-old named Errol Lindsley walking to get a key cut, meaning like have a new key made.
Mm-hmm.
Dahmer lured Errol to his apartment where he drugged him, and then he drilled a hole in his skull through which he injected hydrochloric acid with a baster.
Oh,
with like a turkey baster.
Why? Why are we doing this?
You asked where it could escalate.
I did ask that, and I did predict it, and you know what? This is not what I predicted.
No, it never is.
It never is. Because you know what? I'm not a serial killer, and I don't have the mind of one.
And that's a good thing.
Yes, it is. Indeed, it is.
So according to Dahmer, Errol awoke after this experiment, which Dahmer had conceived in the hope that it would induce a permanent, unresistant, submissive state.
Ew.
Yes. Errol woke up.
I can't believe this man woke up from this. From a hole drilled in his skull and hydrochloric acid in his brain?
Yes. Errol woke up and said, I have a headache. What time is it? And in response, Dahmer drugged him again and then strangled him.
I'm sure that spooked him.
I'm sure it did, yeah. He then decapitated Errol and kept his skull.
Mm-hmm.
He then flayed Errol's body, placing the skin in a solution of cold water and salt for several weeks in the hopes of permanently retaining it.
Huh. You think he's like preserving it like leather?
Yeah, something like that, exactly. Reluctantly, he disposed of Errol's skin when he noted that it had become too frayed and brittle. By 1991, the fellow residents of his place of Oxford Apartments had repeatedly complained to the building manager, a man named Sapa Princewell, of the foul smells coming out of apartment 213. In addition,
I wonder what kind of smells. Like, are those like the acid smells from all the dissolving?
all the acid, the skin decomposing, the spills of God knows what, blood and chemicals.
True.
So in addition to the smells, they also complained about sounds of falling objects and the occasional sound of a chainsaw.
The
Yeah,
fuck?
right? Well, he's dismembering bodies.
Right, but like that must be making a huge mess. I'm so like, what?
Yeah, I would have like maybe see. I imagine someone saying a chainsaw, but I'm picturing like an electric knife. Something.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Princewell contacted Dahmer in response to these complaints on several occasions, although he initially accused the odors emanating from his apartment as being caused by his freezer breaking down and causing the contents to become spoiled. On later occasions, he informed Princewell that the reason for the resurgence of the odors was that several of his tropical fish had recently died and that he would take care of the matter.
Huh.
I don't know how tropical fish dying is going to stink your place up as bad as what I'm imagining, but
Right.
this uninterested landlord didn't care, clearly.
It was just like, all right, yeah, whatever. It's a stinky guy. He pays rent. Who cares?
Yeah, he's not causing any problems, people. Leave him alone. On May 24th, 1991, Dahmer encountered 31-year-old aspiring model Tony Hughes at a nightclub. He was lured to Dahmer's apartment with the offer of money to pose for photographs. Tony was drugged into unconsciousness before Dahmer injected hydrochloric acid into his skull in an effort to disable his will and render him submissive.
Let's try it again.
Although on this occasion, the drilling and the injection proved fatal.
That makes more sense to me.
Yeah, that's what I would assume would happen every time.
Yeah, I was shocked that it didn't the first.
On the afternoon of May 26, 1991, Dahmer encountered a 14-year-old Lao teenager, Konarak Synthasofome. It's Lao. It's a Lao name, so I probably butchered the fuck out of that, so I apologize to everyone from the country of Laos. Unknown to Dahmer, Konarak was the younger brother of the boy that Dahmer had molested back in 1988.
Whoa.
Yeah. Imagine that. Fucking two members of the same family victimized by the same serial killer.
That's crazy.
Dahmer offered Konarak money to accompany him to his apartment to pose for Polaroid pictures.
Is it more than $50?
It doesn't specify how much he offered, but considering the kid's age, probably less.
It's $55.
You're on the prices, right? According to Dahmer, Konarak was initially reluctant to the proposal before changing his mind and accompanying him to his apartment, where he posed for 2 pictures in his underwear before Dahmer drugged him into unconsciousness and performed oral sex on him.
Oh, gross.
Before Konarak fell unconscious, Dahmer led the boy to his bedroom, where the body of Tony Hughes, whom Dahmer had just killed 3 days before, still lay naked on the floor. According to Dahmer, he believes that Konarak saw the body, yet did not react to seeing the bloated corpse, likely because of the effects of the sleeping pills.
Right, and he probably just like doesn't understand what he's looking at.
On this occasion, Dahmer drilled a single, narrow hole into the crown of Konarak's skull, through which he injected hydrochloric acid into the frontal lobe.
That's death, right?
Nope. Dahmer then drank several beers while lying alongside Konarak before briefly falling asleep, then leaving his apartment to drink at a bar and to purchase more alcohol. In the early morning hours of May 27th, Dahmer returned to his apartment to discover Konarak was sitting outside the house naked on the corner of 25th and State Street.
Oh my God.
The
Konarak,
amount of balls it took to have him be able to get up and get out is insane.
the strength, I mean, that's crazy. Konarak was speaking in Lao with 3 distressed young women standing near him. Dahmer approached the women and told them that Konarak, whom he referred to by the alias John Hamong, was his friend and attempted to lead him back to his apartment by the arm. The 3 women dissuaded Dahmer, explaining that they had already called 911. Upon the arrival of 2 Milwaukee police officers, John Balsarzak and Joseph Gabrish, Dahmer's demeanor relaxed. He told police officers that Konarak was his 19-year-old boyfriend and that he had drunk too much following a fight and that he frequently behaved in this manner while intoxicated. Dahmer added that his lover had consumed Jack Daniel's whiskey that evening. The 3 women were exasperated, and when one of the trio attempted to intercede and indicate to the officers that Konarak had blood on his testicles, that Konarak was bleeding from his rectum, and that he was clearly struggling against Dahmer's attempts to walk him away, the officer harshly informed her to butt out, shut the hell up, and not to interfere.
Are you fucking kidding me?
No. Now, it needs to be noted that these are 2 white police officers and 3 black women.
I was just about to say,
Well, there
pretty
you
sure
go.
race played a part in that.
Yep. Shortly after the arrival of the Milwaukee police officers, 3 members of the Milwaukee Fire Department arrived at the scene. These individuals also examined Konarak for injuries and provided a yellow blanket for the police officers to cover Konarak. One of the 3 believed Konarak needed treatment, the firefighters, but the police officers directed the fire department personnel to leave.
And it's like firefighters are usually trained as like at least basic EMT training too, so they should really fucking listen to them.
They should have listened to them, yes. Shortly thereafter, police officer Richard Porobrukin arrived at the scene. He and Officer Gabrish, followed by Balsarak, escorted Dahmer and Konarak to Dahmer's apartment as Dahmer repeatedly commented on the general crime in the neighborhood and that he appreciated the police.
Ugh. Ew. Never
Inside,
trust a cop lover.
no, never. Inside his apartment, and in an effort to verify his claim that he and Konarak were lovers,
There's a dead body in there?
there is a dead body in the bedroom. Dahmer showed the officers 2 semi-nude Polaroid pictures that he had taken of Konarak the previous evening. So though Balzarak said he smelled something unusual, Gabrish later stated he noted a strange scent reminiscent of excrement inside the apartment.
He's just like, whatever, these gay men are nasty.
Right? The odor, of course, was the decomposing body of Hughes, but they didn't see that.
A fucking cop, I'm sorry, should know what that smells like.
Agreed. Dahmer stated that to investigate this odor, one officer simply peeked his head around the bedroom door, but really didn't take a good look inside.
Oh my God.
The
He must have been shitting a brick.
The officers then left with departing remarks to Dahmer saying, "Take good care of Konarak."
Insane.
If they only knew.
The incident was listed by the officers as a domestic dispute.
Oh my God.
So, my take on this is these white, probably straight police officers were incredibly uncomfortable in that situation.
Yep, I mean, for sure.
You know, I think even the TV show Dahmer lays heavily into the idea of like, yeah, this is our gay stuff, and is saying shit to make them uncomfortable that way.
Exactly, and like being like playing into their worst stereotypes of gay people, and that like, yeah, of course a gay man would be dating a 19-year-old, and like, yeah, of course a gay man would have a weird smelling apartment and would,
Right.
have domestic violence or just even weird domestic disputes and unhealthy relationships.
Right, and make them feel better about their heterosexualness, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah,
It's purely affirming to their pre-existing biases.
exactly. So upon the departure of the 3 police officers from his apartment, Dahmer again injected hydrochloric acid into Conorak's
Oh
brain.
my God!
This injection proved fatal.
Well, that's kind of a bad idea because now the police have already been there and saw you with this person, but
Right,
whatever.
but unfortunately it's not enough. The following day, May 28th, Dahmer took a day's leave from work to devote himself to the dismemberment of the bodies of Conorak and Tony. He kept both of their skulls.
Yeah. I hate that he does that.
Yeah, it's fucked up. On June 30th, Dahmer traveled to Chicago, where he encountered 20-year-old Matt Turner at a bus station. Matt accepted Dahmer's offer to travel to Milwaukee for a professional photo shoot. This is so weird that it's so effective.
It is.
At the apartment, Dahmer drugged, strangled, and dismembered Turner and placed his head and internal organs in separate plastic bags in his freezer.
Eh.
Matt Turner was never reported missing.
Oh,
Well,
that's
nobody
sad.
seemed to care about him.
You got to wonder, like, how far removed are you from everyone in your life that no one notices you're gone? Like, it's sad.
That's so sad.
Yeah. 5 days later, on July 5th, Dahmer lured 23-year-old Jeremiah Weinberger from a Chicago bar to his apartment on the promise of spending the weekend with him. He drugged Jeremiah and twice injected boiling water through his skull.
What the shit?
Yeah.
He's just throwing shit at a wall and seeing what sticks.
Yeah, he's experimenting. And that sent him into a coma from which he died 2 days later. But to be fair, that's the kind of shit Dahmer wanted.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like exactly what he wanted.
It's a living body that's not responsive. That's what he wanted.
Ugh.
On July...
So fucking gross.
It is. It's nasty as fuck. On July 15th, Dahmer encountered 24-year-old Oliver Lacey at the corner of 27th and Kilbourne. Oliver agreed to Dahmer's ruse of posing nude for photos and accompanied him to his apartment, where the pair engaged in tentative sexual activity before Dahmer drugged him. On this occasion, Dahmer intended to prolong the time he spent with Lacey while alive. After unsuccessfully attempting to render Oliver unconscious with chloroform, he phoned his workplace and requested the next day off. They granted this, although the next day he was suspended from his job. So he lost his job for this.
Oh, for just like suddenly. He's been taking a lot of time off.
He has, yes. After strangling Oliver, Dahmer had sex with the corpse before dismembering him. He placed Oliver's head and heart in the refrigerator and his skeleton in the freezer.
I feel like his freezer's got to be getting pretty full, huh?
Well, I guess he's probably eating things at this point.
True, but also like he's keeping a lot of trophies, and it's like, where is he keeping them?
Yeah, I can't imagine.
I feel like his filing cabinet is probably getting full.
If you haven't watched all of that show, you should when we're done here.
Yeah, I definitely haven't watched all of it. I think I got a little too disturbed.
It is fucked up. There are some really, like, the episodes are so well done for how uncomfortable it is. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think there's something about listening to it and like us talking about it, but then it's also that we're talking to each other about it. So it's like there's some cope there, but it was really hard to watch.
Yeah, and it makes sense because when you're watching it, you're more immersed. Because you're right. You can imagine it while we're talking about it, but someone's not giving you the visuals.
Right, and I'm
Yeah,
also
but-
always using a visual distraction for myself. I'm usually over here crocheting while we talk, so
Which makes sense. And that
I
helps.
can't picture this too much, which helps.
Right.
Visuals definitely make it more real.
Mm-hmm.
So 4 days later, on July 19th, Dahmer received word that he had lost his job. Upon receipt of that news, Dahmer lured 25-year-old Joseph Bradhoft to his apartment. Joseph was strangled and left lying on Dahmer's bed covered with a sheet for 2 days.
Ugh.
On July 21st, Dahmer removed that sheet to find the head covered in maggots.
Ew.
Oh, God.
First time?
Yeah, he decapitated the body, cleaned the head, and placed it in the refrigerator.
Ew.
He later acidified Joseph's torso along with those of his 2 other victims killed within that previous month. So he's just
He
keeping
really
them
is letting
around.
them hang for
Yeah.
a while before processing them.
On July 22nd, 1991, Dahmer approached 3 men with an offer of $100 to accompany him to his apartment to pose for nude photos, drink beers, and simply...
All 3 of them?
Well, he just threw it out there.
Oh, gotcha.
Yep. One of the trio, 32-year-old Tracy Edwards, agreed to accompany him to his apartment.
Tracy, a man, Tracy.
Yes, Tracy's a man. That happens occasionally. I think I know 2 Tracys who are men. Upon entering Dahmer's apartment, Tracy noted the foul odor and several boxes of hydrochloric acid on the floor.
Finally, someone's observing their observation or
Right?
their surroundings, you know?
He's probably the first person who's not really high out of his mind, too. You know,
True, or
besides
already
the cops.
drunk.
Yeah.
Or, yeah.
Dahmer claimed that the hydrochloric acid were to use for cleaning bricks, which, okay.
Oh, my God. What?
Okay, sure. Yeah, I don't get it. After some minor conversation, Edwards responded to Dahmer's request to turn his head and view his tropical fish, whereupon Dahmer placed a handcuff on his wrist. When Tracy asked, "What's happening?" Dahmer unsuccessfully attempted to cuff his other wrist, and then told Tracy to accompany him into the bedroom to pose for nude pictures. While inside the bedroom, Tracy noted nude male posters on the wall and that a videotape of the movie The Exorcist 3 was playing on a TV. He also noted a blue 57-gallon drum in the corner from which a strong odor was emanating.
Okay, so I have to say, you're saying he noted all these things, which means that he lived to tell the tale.
Correct. We're close to the end of his freedom, yes. Dahmer then brandished a knife and informed Tracy he intended to take nude photos of him. In an attempt to appease Dahmer, Edwards unbuttoned his shirt, saying he would allow him to do so if he removed the handcuffs and put the knife away. In response to this promise, Dahmer simply turned his attention to the TV. Tracy observed Dahmer rocking back and forth and chanting before turning his attention back to him.
Terrifying.
Dahmer then placed his head on Edward's chest, listening to his heartbeat, and then with the knife pressed against his intended victim, Dahmer informed Tracy he intended to eat his heart. In continuous attempts to prevent Dahmer from attacking him, Tracy repeated that he was Dahmer's friend and that he was not going to run away. Tracy,
This is smart. Honestly,
it's probably the smartest thing you can do right here.
this guy must have read a book called How to Escape a Serial Killer.
That's funny. Someone should write that book.
Someone should.
Tracy had decided he was going to either jump from the window or run through the unlocked front door at his next opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
When Tracy next stated he needed to use the bathroom, he asked if he could sit with a beer in the living room where there was air conditioning. Dahmer consented.
Smart. So getting himself out of this location where he's feeling threatened. It's smart.
Dahmer consented and the pair walked to the living room when Tracy exited the bathroom. Inside the living room, Tracy waited until he observed Dahmer have a momentary lapse of concentration before requesting to use the bathroom again.
Mm-hmm.
When Tracy rose from the couch, he noted Dahmer was not holding the handcuffs, whereupon Tracy punched him in the face, knocking Dahmer off balance, and ran out the front door.
There we go.
At 11:30 p.m. on July 22nd, Tracy flagged down 2 Milwaukee police officers, Robert Roth and Rolf Mueller, at the corner of North 25th Street. The officers noted that Tracy had a handcuff attached to his wrist, whereupon he explained to the officers that a freak had placed the handcuffs upon him, and he asked if the police could remove them. Now keep in mind, Tracy is an African-American man.
Yep.
When the officers' handcuff keys failed to fit the brand of handcuffs, Tracy agreed to accompany the officers to the apartment where Tracy had just spent the past 5 hours trying to escape.
This is just like, no. Sorry, if this was a white woman, they would never, ever, ever, ever make her do that.
Agreed. When the officers and Tracy arrived at apartment 213, Dahmer invited them inside and acknowledged that he had placed the handcuffs upon Tracy, although he offered no explanation as to why he had done so. At this point, Tracy divulged to the officers that Dahmer had also brandished a large knife, and that had happened in the bedroom. Dahmer made no comment about this revelation, indicating to one of the officers, Mueller, that the key to the handcuffs was on his bedside dresser. As Mueller entered the bedroom, Dahmer attempted to pass Mueller to retrieve the key himself, whereupon the second officer present, Roth, informed Dahmer to back off.
Mm-hmm.
In the bedroom, Mueller noted there was a large knife beneath the bed. He saw an open drawer, and inside contained scores of Polaroid pictures, many of which were human bodies in various stages of dismemberment.
Oh, no.
Can you imagine being a cop and you're thinking you're just dealing with like a gay domestic, a domestic abuse thing, and you fucking see bodies of pictures of dismembered bodies?
Insane. Okay, I remember the scene. I remember the scene from the show.
I would get out as soon as I could.
Yeah.
This scene is the entire first episode of that show.
Okay, so I think I just watched the first episode then.
Okay. Yeah, and I can see where this would make you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Mueller noted the decor indicated that those photos had been taken in the same apartment in which they were standing.
Mm-hmm.
Mueller walked into the living room to show the photos, uttering the words, "These are for real." When Dahmer saw Mueller was holding several of his Polaroids, he fought with the officers in an effort to resist arrest. The officers quickly overpowered him, cuffed his hands behind his back, and called a second squad car for backup.
And crazy, because I hate to say it, but if Dahmer wasn't a white man, he probably would have been shot on sight.
Probably, yeah. Which, I hate to say it, Dahmer deserved that.
He did deserve that. But also, we would have never found out what happened to all those people if they shot him on sight.
That's true, because Dahmer was very open about it, like a lot of these, serial killers are, yeah.
Yeah.
At this point, Mueller opened the refrigerator to reveal the freshly severed head of a black male on the bottom shelf. Can you imagine? I just can't.
No, and I don't wanna.
As Dahmer laid pinned on the floor beneath Roth, he turned his head towards the officers and muttered the words, "For what I did, I should be dead."
Huh.
So a more detailed search of the apartment, conducted by the Milwaukee Police's Criminal Investigation Bureau, revealed a total of 4 severed heads in Dahmer's kitchen.
That's it?
That's not including the skulls?
Hold on. A total of 7 skulls, some painted, some bleached, were found in Dahmer's bedroom and inside a closet. So that's 11 heads, technically. Investigators discovered collected blood drippings upon a tray at the bottom of Dahmer's refrigerator.
Ew!
Plus 2 human hearts and a portion of arm muscle, each wrapped inside plastic bags upon the shelves. In Dahmer's freezer, investigators discovered an entire torso, plus a bag of human organs and flesh stuck to the ice at the bottom of the freezer.
Oh,
so gross.
Imagine having to write up that report.
That must have been, I'm sure these cops needed therapy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think all cops need therapy.
Well, I think most people need therapy, but yes.
I agree with that.
Elsewhere in the apartment, investigators discovered 2 entire skeletons, a pair of severed hands, 2 severed and preserved penises, a mummified scalp, and in that 57-gallon drum,
Oh no.
3 further dismembered torsos dissolving in an acid solution.
No.
A total of 74 Polaroid pictures detailing the dismemberment of Dahmer's victims were found. In reference to the recovery of body parts and artifacts at that address, the chief medical examiner later stated, "It was more like dismantling someone's museum than an actual crime scene."
Oh.
Beginning in the early hours of July 23, 1991, Dahmer was questioned by Detective Patrick Kennedy as to the murders he had committed and the evidence found at his apartment. Over the following 2 weeks, Kennedy and later Detective Dennis Murphy conducted numerous interviews with Dahmer, which, when combined, totaled over 60 hours.
Ooh.
Imagine having to sit with such a sick fuck like that for that long.
It's crazy. It's crazy. And I don't know if I go into it later in the notes, but I watched a documentary on this, and apparently one of the female officers involved in this was one of the first cases she ever did.
Oh, God.
God, okay, therapy, please.
Right? Like, I just got a new job. Guess what? It's the worst case in, fucking history.
Literally.
Crazy. Dahmer waived his right to have a lawyer present throughout his interrogation, adding
Interesting. So he has really no interest in trying to fight what the consequences are.
Correct. He at this point, I don't think he
Seems
ever truly gave a shit about anything. You know what I mean?
No.
Except his father's approval.
Yeah.
He also wished to confess all, as he had created this horror, and it only made sense to do everything he could to put it to an end.
Interesting.
He readily admitted to having murdered 16 young men in Wisconsin in 1987, and one further victim, Stephen Hicks, killed in Ohio in 1978. Sorry, he had killed them since 1987, not in 1987.
Right.
Dahmer readily admitted to engaging in necrophilia with several of the victims' bodies, including performing sexual acts with their viscera as he dismembered their bodies in the bathtub.
Ooh.
Yeah.
It's just so fucking nasty.
Of all the things, of all the kinks in the world, getting off on someone's guts, that is way too strange for me.
No, that's so horrifically disgusting. It's just ew. Gross.
Having noted that much of the blood pooled inside the victims' chests after death, Dahmer first removed their internal organs, then suspended the torso so the blood drained into his bathtub before he diced any organs he wished to retain and paring the flesh from the bodies. I know, I'm sorry. The bones he wished to dispose of were pulverized or acidified with Soilax and bleach solutions used to aid in the preservation of skeletons and skulls that he did wish to keep. Dahmer confessed to having consumed the hearts, livers, biceps, and portions of thighs of 3 victims and had retained the flesh and organs of other victims that he intended to consume.
Ugh, so some of the things that the police found he was planning to eat.
Now, how did that not make him sick?
Well, I mean, I don't think he's eating it raw.
Well, no, but even still,
I mean,
wouldn't that fuck with your system?
I don't know, you know? Because, I mean, you have instances of the Donner Party and, where people were forced to cannibalize to survive. I don't think it's a physical thing. I think for us, it's just a moral and a psychological thing.
I do know what you're talking about, though, Jameson. I have heard that it's in theory makes you sick, but also then how would they study that?
Yeah, right?
Right. We're going to force feed you parts of the liver. Let us know how you feel.
Yeah.
Right, that you could only do case studies based on people who reported having cannibalized. which
Or
hopefully,
I donate my body to science, but I want it to be the study on cannibalism.
and they will never ever do that. They would never pass
Yeah.
the ethical review board.
So I don't know where that information comes from, so I don't know that there's any legitimacy to it.
Right? I don't know.
So referencing his reason for consuming his victims, Dahmer stated that he had initially consumed portions of his victims due to curiosity, before adding, quote, "I suppose, in an odd way, it made me feel that they were even more a permanent part of me," unquote.
Ew.
Completely
No.
disgusting.
Disgusting.
Describing the increase in his rate of killing in the 2 months prior to his arrest, Dahmer stated that he had been completely swept along with his compulsion to kill, adding, "It was an incessant and a never-ending desire to be with someone at whatever cost."
That's sad and pathetic and gross.
Yeah, it's like I understand loneliness is a powerful thing, but what drives you to that? It's fucking crazy to me.
We'll never understand. And like, it sounds like his childhood was like kind of fucked up, but like no more fucked up than like,
Ours? Yeah.
right.
So on July 25th, 1991, Dahmer was charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder. On August 22nd, he had been charged with a further 11 counts of murder committed in Wisconsin. On September 14th, investigators in Ohio, having uncovered hundreds of bone fragments in the woodland behind his address, where he lived when he was younger, Dahmer had confessed to killing his first victim there. They formally identified 2 molars and a vertebrae with X-ray records from Stephen Hicks,
Oh,
which is crazy.
yeah.
3 days later, Dahmer was charged by authorities in Ohio with Stephen's murder. At a scheduled preliminary hearing on January 13th, 1992, Dahmer pled guilty but insane to 15 counts of murder.
Well, I don't know if it's quite arguable that he's insane. I mean, certainly.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be somewhat insane to do this shit, you know?
Yeah, at least.
Dahmer was sentenced to life in prison plus 10 years upon the first 2 counts. The remaining 13 counts carried a mandatory sentence of life imprisonment plus 70 years. The death penalty was not an option for Judge Graham to consider at the penalty phase, as Wisconsin had abolished capital punishment in 1853.
Oh, damn. Wisconsin was not fucking around with that.
Yeah, they were like, we're not going to kill people up here. Upon hearing Dahmer's sentencing, his father Lionel and stepmother Sherry requested to be allowed a 10-minute private meeting with their son before he was transferred to the Columbia Correctional Institution in Portage to begin his sentence. This request was granted, and the trio exchanged hugs and well wishes before Dahmer was escorted away.
You hugged your child after he murdered, ate, and dismembered.
Well, we're going to get into Lionel Dahmer in a little bit too, but for now, we'll just keep going. For the first year of his incarceration, Dahmer was placed in solitary confinement due to concerns for his physical safety should he come into contact with fellow inmates. Upon Dahmer's request, after 1 year of solitary confinement, he was transferred to a less secure unit where he was assigned a 2-hour daily work detail cleaning the toilet block. I love that they call it the toilet block.
The bathroom.
Yeah, that's fucking amazing. I mean, it's basically like it's the same similar situation with toilets in like the military at boot camp. So to me, like that was just the head, you know, but the toilet block is so much fun. More fun, I think.
The head?
So it's a Navy term. That's what they call the bathroom.
Oh, right, on boats they call
Yes.
it that. Yeah.
Yep.
Right, because you were, yeah.
Yeah, the Marine Corps is part of the Navy, technically. So this work detail later expanded to include cleaning the prison gymnasium. On July 3rd, 1994, a fellow inmate, Osvaldo Dorothy, attempted to slash Dahmer's throat with a razor
Let's go.
embedded in a toothbrush as Dahmer sat in the prison chapel after the weekly church service was concluded.
Let's go. Get him.
Dahmer received superficial wounds and was not seriously hurt in the incident. On the morning of November 28, 1994, Dahmer left his cell to conduct his assigned work detail. Accompanying him were two fellow inmates, Jesse Anderson and Christopher Scarver. The trio were left unsupervised in the showers of the prison gym for approximately 20 minutes.
Red flag.
At approximately 8:10 a.m., Dahmer was discovered on the floor of the bathrooms of the gym suffering from extreme head wounds.
Let's go.
He had been severely bludgeoned about the head and face with a 20-inch metal bar.
Let's go.
His head...
I feel like I'm watching a sporting event right now. I'm like, let's fucking go.
He's like a UFC fighter, yeah.
Yes.
I can't right now.
Oh my god.
His head had also been repeatedly struck against the wall in the assault. Although Dahmer was still alive and rushed to a nearby hospital, he was pronounced dead 1 hour later.
Damn.
Anderson had been beaten with the same instrument, and he died from his wounds 2 days later. Scarver, who was serving a life sentence for murder committed in 1990, informed authorities that he had first attacked Dahmer with the metal bar as Dahmer was cleaning a staff locker room before attacking Anderson as Anderson cleaned the inmate locker room.
I wonder what Anderson did.
I think he was just in the wrong place.
He was there.
According to Scarver, Dahmer did not yell or make any noise as he was attacked. Immediately after attacking both men, Scarver, who was thought to be schizophrenic, returned to his cell and informed a prison guard, "God told me to do it. Jesse Anderson and Jeffrey Dahmer are dead."
Oh my god.
Upon learning of his death, Dahmer's mother, Joyce, responded angrily to the media, quote, "Now is everybody happy? Now that he's bludgeoned to death, is that good enough for everyone?" Unquote.
Not quite, but it's pretty good.
Good answer. Good answer. In September of 1995, Dahmer's body was cremated and his ashes were divided between his parents. Dahmer's murders were committed at a time of heightened racial tension in Milwaukee. News of the murders, as well as the conduct of the Milwaukee police officers, John Balzarak and Joseph Gabrish, with regards to victim Konarak, were exacerbated and highlighted racial tensions within the city. The Oxford Apartments at 924 North 25th Street, where Dahmer had killed 12 of his victims, was demolished in November of 1992, and the site is still a vacant lot today.
That makes sense. That's a fucking harrowing place.
Yeah, there's probably a lot of ghosts there.
And not happy.
Dahmer's estate was awarded to the families of his 11 victims who had sued for damages. In 1996, Thomas Jacobson, a lawyer representing 8 of the families, announced a plan to auction off Dahmer's estate. Although victims' relatives stated the motivation was not greed, the announcement sparked controversy. A civic group, Milwaukee Civic Pride, was quickly established in an effort to raise the funds to purchase and destroy many of Dahmer's possessions.
I like that.
The group pledged...
Because there's going to be a bunch of fucking sickos who are fans of serial killers and want the memorabilia.
Exactly. The group pledged $407,225, including a $100,000 gift by Milwaukee real estate developer Joseph Ziebler to purchase Dahmer's estate. 5 of the 8 families represented by Jacobson agreed to the terms, and Dahmer's possessions were subsequently destroyed and buried in an undisclosed Illinois landfill. So
I actually really like that.
Yeah, that's a good way to go. But I'm not going to lie, if I could afford something like that, I would have bought one.
Sorry to call you a sicko, but...
No, but I get it. Like, I would be that guy with a painting from Gacy, you know? I just
Yeah.
just out of the morbid curiosity of owning it, maybe.
Right.
It depends on where the money I spent went to. You know what I mean?
True.
If it went to the victims' families, great. But if it was going to the killer, no, I wouldn't buy it. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, of course.
So in 1994, Lionel, his father, published a book called A Father's Story and donated a portion of the proceeds from the book to the victim's family. Most of the families showed support for Lionel and Sherry, although 3 families subsequently sued him.
Yeah, I fucking believe it
Yeah.
because they were weird.
Right, and this is where I said we were going to discuss him later. I
Mhm.
truly believed he loved his son. I do. But I also think he needed to take more responsibility. And
Absolutely.
I think writing this book was his way of trying to cash out.
Mm-hmm.
So, 2 of the families sued him for using their names in the book without obtaining their prior consent, and a 3rd family, that of Stephen Hicks, filed a wrongful death suit against Lionel, Sherry, his former wife Joyce, and they cited parental negligence as the cause for the claim.
Oh my
Interesting.
God.
And how did that fare in court?
There's no further information on that. So I'm
Oh.
guessing they settled out of court and kept it quiet.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So Lionel Dahmer lived with his second wife Sherry until her death in January of 2023.
Oh wow, recent.
He died of natural causes on December 5th of 2023.
Very recent.
Both refused to change their surname and professed their love for Jeffrey Dahmer in spite of his crimes.
The fuck? Ew. No.
Yeah.
Sometimes you shouldn't love your children unconditionally. I'll say it.
Yeah, and I agree with you 110%. Sometimes there are things that you need to distance yourself from.
Mm-hmm.
Dahmer's mother, Joyce, died of cancer on November 27th, 2000. Prior to her death, she had attempted suicide on at least one occasion. Dahmer's younger
Yeah.
brother, David, changed his name and lives in anonymity.
Good for him.
And that is the case of Jeffrey fucking Dahmer.
Jeffrey fucking Dahmer. Yeah, that's right. Oh, fucking. I'm just. The only thing that would have been more satisfying is if they kept him in solitary confinement forever and he got to be tortured by his own insanity forever. But him getting bludgeoned in prison does also feel pretty good.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of vigilante justice when it's deserved.
Yes, which
And
is rare, but in
right.
this case,
Well, he was
in cases like this, prison is never enough punishment.
right, and he was bludgeoned to death by another inmate, but this inmate was also a black man, so good for him.
Yeah, good for him.
Yeah. And I honestly think, so we didn't really cover it here, but according to some reports, those 2 police officers that turned Conorak back over to Dahmer, they were put on suspension, but the police union fought for them and got them reinstated with pay.
Sounds about fucking right.
Yeah.
Sounds like exactly what, and I don't mean right by like, I'm glad that happened. I mean, that sounds like exactly what fucking happens.
Right.
Police officers could do fucking whatever.
Exactly. It's fucking nuts.
There's never a consequence for a police officer, and when there is, it's extremely fucking rare.
Yeah.
And especially at that time.
Oh, that time and that situation, complete
Are you
bullshit.
gonna try to tell me it's gotten better? I don't know about that.
No, oh no. I'm just at that time, like
More
they
people were
didn't-
turning a blind eye, is what
Yeah,
he
they
meant.
didn't
Yeah.
investigate and they didn't look into things nearly as much as they would now.
Yeah, because
Yep.
we could easily go to Rodney King, which was happening soon after this,
Mm-hmm.
to see that, it took a videotape of something to spark,
Anything.
but then those cops were still acquitted. So,
Yep.
it definitely hasn't gotten much better, but I think it's gotten a little better, but I think the technology has forced it to get better.
Exactly. Like the only thing is now that everyone has a video recorder in their pocket, and so we're catching these things more.
Right, which is why more and more police officers have those cameras on their persons.
Right, the body
Mhm.
cams are
Yes.
go both ways.
I'm always surprised, not that I've talked to too many police officers, but, I have been pulled over occasionally in the last few years, and I'm always surprised when they tell me it's being recorded on body cam. I'm still like, oh yeah, that's a thing.
Right, yeah. I guess it's like in a two-party consent state, they, in theory, legally have to tell you that they're recording.
Right, because I believe you can record anyone in a public space on video, but you have to inform them that they're being audio recorded. I think that's the law.
Yes, I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Which is why in some places when you walk in, it tells you you're being recorded. But I don't know. It's
Yeah.
weird. The whole thing's weird. I always
Mhm.
assume I'm being recorded regardless at this point.
That's probably a good default assumption, yeah.
Yeah. So after all that, where do you stand on Dahmer?
Rotten hell.
He's a sick fuck.
So
Sick fuck, rotten hell.
we've covered 4 major famous cases now: Gacy, Bundy, Dahmer, and John Bonet.
John Bonet.
Which would you say out of the 4? I mean, I know we don't know who the killer of John Bonet is, but of the other 3, which would you say are the worst? Is the worst of them?
That is a very good question.
As a
I mean,
reminder,
honestly, the ones that stick with me the most aren't even those ones. You know who sticks with you the most is the fucking toy box killer.
Yes, I can see. Someone I work with that listens, told me they were surprised we didn't do the toy box killer as an FJI case for you.
Yeah, but I guess it's like that one I had truly never, ever heard of. These other ones are names that I've heard, but I don't know what happened.
Right, which
But
is
like,
why we separated them. Yes.
exactly. But yeah, it was.
Who would
I
you
mean,
go with,
it
Janus?
doesn't answer your question, but
Well, for me, between these 3, I would say Gacy was the worst.
Because that's who I was thinking too.
Yeah. Because, and here's the fucked up part. Gacy was grabbing any young boy and kind of, I mean, it was all, don't get me wrong, Bundy, Gacy, Dahmer, all their victims, it was against their will. But there was something about Gacy and the way he hid in plain sight that makes him more terrifying.
More terrifying for sure.
Yeah.
And I'm not remembering all the details, but didn't he sexually assault those boys before he killed them?
Yes, he did.
That makes it way worse to me.
Yes.
Like, obviously, doing that to a dead body is disgusting and, like, viscerally upsetting, but knowing that happened to someone while they were alive is so much worse.
Yes, and that's why I think Gacy's the worst, because Dahmer, at least they were either unconscious or dead. Bundy, it's not even clear he assaulted them when they were alive or conscious, because he liked to hit them over the head with heavy things.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I think Gacy's the worst. I agree with you. And
I agree.
And we actually have another case on the horizon of a serial killer who also assaulted his victims in that way. But I don't want to go into too much detail, but we have another case on the horizon that's coming up that it's not a famous serial killer, so it won't be an FJI, but it's an upsetting one.
Yeah.
I think they're all upsetting, but some of them are worse.
Yes. We've never discussed anything non-upsetting here except for like the murder fumbles.
Which I'm planning the next one of those coming up soon as well.
Heck yeah.
So, all right. So thank you everybody for joining us. Once again, I am Janus Dead.
I'm Jameson Dead.
And I'm Joyous Dead.
And we'll see you next week.
Bye.